Hi, welcome to Spirit Mail. I'm Cheryl, and this is Daily Mail episode 51. So today I want to talk a little bit about part of my spiritual journey. You all know, if you're a follower, if you're a regular on this channel, you know I have a Christian background. And it was one thing to learn that what you learn in church, that God created the heaven and earth in 7 days and put man on the earth, or in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested, right? You learn that he created this, and he separated the firmament with the waters, or however all that goes, and then he put plants, and then he put animals, and then he put people. Basically, that's what it says. But whenever you really grasp what happened, and I know there are some people who say, well, that's all metaphorical, or it didn't happen that way, or allegorical, or whatever. It doesn't matter for what I'm about to say, because this is what science says. And what's crazy for me is that whenever I started reading this stuff and coming across this information, it's like I felt so full and excited, because it was like there has to be an original source that did all this. And I love what I heard a long time ago. I've never been to chiropractic school, but I heard a long time ago that one of the first things they learn in chiropractic school is the intelligence that created the body can heal the body. So let me just tell you a little bit about a couple of different things that freak me out and get me real excited about truly how powerful we are. So the human body has 10 trillion cells, right? We have 10 trillion cells in our body. Each cell contains 23 DNA molecules. So, and these molecules range anywhere from 1.7 meters to 8.5 meters when they're uncoiled. So the average would be about 5 centimeters. So if we took the DNA in our body, and I'm talking about like in my body individually, and in your body individually, and uncoiled it, our DNA would stretch out, are you ready for this? For 744 million miles. If we unraveled the DNA in our own individual body, I'm not saying add my DNA and your DNA and you get 744 million miles. No. In my body, the average person, the average size, right? Everything's averaged out. But you take the DNA out of my body and unravel it, and it's going to stretch out about 744 million miles. What does that mean? Well, let's put some perspective to it. The moon is about 250,000 miles away. So what does that mean? That means my DNA could travel to the moon and back around 1,500 times. What? And it's all contained in this little 5'2" body. Isn't that wild? The sun is about 93 million miles away. So my DNA unraveled could go to the sun and back about 4 times. Y'all, that's crazy. And this isn't just me, this is you too. All packaged up neatly in this little 5'2" body. I mean, really? So you have to stop and think. I mean, how can anybody think that that's just an accident? Not to mention how the systems all work. Sometimes whenever I want a brain break, that's the kind of stuff I like to look at during a brain break. The other thing is that really wows me is that our brain, speaking of brain breaks, our brain has about 100 billion cells. Guess how many stars are in the Milky Way galaxy? About 100 billion. I had a while back said in a reading that off off the cuff I said something about it's like we're many universes walking around, you know, just we're each one of us are our own little universe. And I that's where that came from, because a few years back, you know, during this journey, that's where I got that from, is because there were so many things that coincided um with what's going on in our body and what's out there in the universe. If you don't believe me, Google images for the galaxy or the universe, and then Google images for the neuron patterns in the brain. And it's like, it looks similar. It's kind of all webbed together, and it just looks very, very similar. And it's like, wow, because it's the brain, that's the computer, right? It's the computer in the brain that allows me to do this, that allows me to talk to you, that allows me to see, and that allows me to hear, and for my body to function. It's that brain. And likewise, isn't it the stars that are kind of like the computer of the universe? Maybe. Am I making that up? I don't know. I might have read that somewhere. But I feel like, but I do know that the stars are the map. You know, they're the map to, like, even in the Bible it said, look at the stars, they'll show you where to go. So it's just, it to me is so super incredible, for us to, when we really think about the mechanisms within us, like, that was an intentional breath. But during the day while I'm talking to you, I don't have to make an intention to breathe. My brain, in those 100 billion cells up there, there's some little instruction people working saying, breathe, 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 breathe. You know, I don't know. I think it was Abraham Hicks who says, you know, you have 10 trillion, I don't know if that's the number she uses, but all these cells in your body, they're like little army guys or whatever. They're there at your service. So whenever we talk to ourselves, when we talk to our body, or just like that, I know I'm kind of all over the place right now, but it's like I get excited, just like that guy who did the study with the water. You know, you speak nicely to the water, and the water creates a beautiful crystalline thing whenever you freeze it. But if you speak ugly to the water, it's cloudy and it's mucky, and it's like water responds to us. Guess what? We're 85% water. So whenever we're talking negatively to ourselves or thinking negatively about ourselves, our body is responding, because 85% of what's inside of us is water. And then whenever we think negative thoughts about somebody else, it's doing the same thing to them. And when we're thinking loving thoughts about them, it's making their water clear. We all affect each other. It's really weird. It's really, really weird when you really stop and think about it, how the universe works. Somebody gave me a gift one time. It was a pack of CDs about how the universe works, and it's like I sat there for hours going, oh my God. And how can anybody watch that and think that there's no God? How can anybody watch that and think that it's all random? I can't fathom how anybody could think that that's all random. I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right. I'm just saying that it, for me, makes me feel more determined that there is some divine presence, some divine intelligence, infinite intelligence that has things in motion, and that is keeping things in motion, like gravity, the law of gravity. You know, it's there to keep our feet firmly planted on this earth, so we don't fly off into space. Yet when you're out there in space where there's no gravity, all of these planets are aligned and moving, and they're not falling down to the earth. And I mean, some of them do sometimes, but they're not It's like they're all in their place and moving in their place and in their own flow. It's just wild. Anyway, that's what I like to do on brain breaks. Look at that stuff and think of that stuff, and it's just incredible. Just kind of like eating chocolate, maybe. It just kind of feeds you, and it feeds your curiosity, and it kind of gives you for me, it gives you a desire to, I want to learn more. I want to understand more of that, and just to sit there and ponder it and think about it. Let's look at the telephones. Used to, there was party lines and there was landlines, and there. And today we have, my cell phone's not here, but today we have cell phones. And they went from these big contraptions connected to a wall that we had to share lines with, to these big bagged box phones that we carried around in our cars whenever we called them car phones first came out. And then to these little tiny flip phones. And now the phones are getting a little bit bigger because there's so much information in them. But I think they're going to get back to that smaller again. But here's the crazy thing. I think all of that is just man-made tools for things that we can already do without it. And there's telepathic communication where people can communicate telepathically. I believe that one day we're going to be able to do that without the use of any phone, because I believe that it's a mechanism built within us, which is why the original inventor had the desire to, or had the thought to build that, because it's something within us already anyway. There's a lot of things out there like that I really and truly believe. I know I'm weird. I really and truly believe that's the way it is. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not a specialist. I'm not a guru. Just giving you a little peek into my brain breaks and that part of my spiritual journey. Because let me tell you something, that truly drove me to keep digging deeper and deeper to understand how we are all connected, and how things do kind of work in flow together, just like they do out there, as above, so below. So, also, brain breaks. I think it's important that we all take brain breaks, just as important as meditations and everything else. It's important for us to do something that really interests us, that keeps us thinking, that keeps us digging, that fills us up with joy, that just takes us on like a mini vacation sometimes, because we can get caught up in our desire to get it right, meditate the right amount of time, or make connections with spirit the right amount of times, or whatever it is we're trying to do. But it's important to have fun too. And with that said, I did a reading a while back for a beautiful couple, and they have a podcast called Cars of Carlisle. And I'm going to put a link down in the description to the podcast. But if you want to join in and listen to them, it's all about cars, older cars, newer cars. It's all around. It all revolves around cars. So it's called Cars of Carlisle. So whenever you're needing a brain break, if you're interested in vehicles, if you're interested in cars and talking about cars and rebuilding cars and all that stuff, definitely check out Cars of Carlisle. Right now we're going to get a PS, talking about brain breaks, talking about things that make us go, wow. Let me tell you something else I thought about while I was thinking about that is, what I thought about while I was thinking about that is, when you really stop and ponder something like that, it's like, I've never done LSD, but I keep thinking to myself, who needs LSD? Whenever you start thinking about stuff like that, you can truly go on a trip. I don't know, weird thought. God, guides, angels, archangels, Holy Spirit, what is the PS? Thank you that you put together for us a neat little package to carry all of the computer stuff that's needed to run our physical bodies. What an incredible feat. Show us clearly what is the PS that goes with this silly little brain break kind of Daily Mail. We thank you for clear and concise messages. We thank you for love, light, and prosperity. And we thank you for clarification, confirmation, and validation. So if you're not tall enough, just remember that truly, if we unraveled you, you'd be tall enough to go to the moon and back 1,500 times, or to the sun and back at least 4 times, or around 4 times. We're taller than we think. We're bigger than we ever imagined. We thank you for clear and concise messages, love, light, and prosperity. And we thank you for clarification, confirmation, and validation. What is the PS, please? Guys, thank you so much for your likes, your subscribes. This little Daily Mail tribe is just awesome. I appreciate your comments, your engagement, ringing the bell, all that stuff. Y'all rock. Okay, Cards of Carlisle. Don't forget, check them out if you need a brain break. Look at this. This is magic too, to me. I say magic. Things just seem magical whenever we plant something in the ground, and it does its thing. It's like, what are the mechanisms that are put in place to cause that little seed to break open and start making its way up out of the ground to turn into a beautiful bush? Do we really stop and think about that? How incredible is that, right? And so why would we not trust our Creator to take care of us or to help us maneuver things that are important to us? It's like if the Creator can put mechanisms in place, whatever they are, to take this little seed and pop it out of its shell and then cause it to start climbing its way out of the earth to form a tree, really? Who can figure out how to make that work? I feel like it's like if we knew all there is to really know, we would never doubt again. I really feel that way. It's kind of back to the Adam and Eve, right? God created Adam and Eve, but before he did that, or it did that, she, it's whatever you call it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think it matters to God. But before we were even put here, all those mechanisms were put in place. And in each and every instance, all of our needs are already met before we get here. And I know sometimes people struggle and stuff like that, but whenever, and kids have situations, that's a whole different story. I'm talking about when we're adults, right? Our needs are met before we even ask. We are provided for before we even ask. But when we don't know it, and we keep asking, it's like going to the restaurant and telling the waiter, this is what I want. And he goes back to the kitchen to start getting it. But before he gets there, you call him back and you say, I changed my mind. Or, are you sure you're going to bring it to me? And he walks away again. You call him back. Are you sure you're going to bring it to me? Because I'm going to pay my bill whenever it's time. Are you sure you're going to bring it to me? You try to tell him how worthy you are. And are you sure you're going to, I ate at that other restaurant the other night. It's like that little waiter would get tired of hearing from us. So, but God's not a man sitting on the cloud that gets tired of hearing from us. But the mechanisms are in place. But whenever we don't receive them, it's hard for us to have them in our lives if we're not willing to just receive it. And here's the Eight of Pentacles. Our reality is a beautiful place. And I feel like this is saying we should all be students of it, right? Get curious. Look at the details. Look about, that little seed that you plant in the ground. I watch those farmers go out there and plow that ground. And I say I watch them, driving down the highway. I'm in a rural community, so I'm driving down the highway. I see these combines tilling up the ground. And and then the next thing you know, there's seeds popping out everywhere because they're planting. And then, within no time at all, you've got this beautiful stuff growing up out of the ground. It's but and it was, our earth was created to sustain us in that way. I mean, do we stop and think about that? We take so much for granted. We take so much for granted. So that's our Daily Mail for today. Y'all, 100 billion cells in our brain to operate the functions of our body system. 100 billion cells. Guess what? 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. I truly believe we are all our own little universe walking around on this planet that we call Earth. Okay, you need a brain break, and this kind of stuff is not for you. Check out Cards of Carlisle. Okay, go out and have a super duper day. It was nice seeing you. Bye.